For centuries, one terrifying story has survived about the Great Wall of China. The legend claims that millions of workers died during its construction, and their bodies were buried inside the wall, turning it into a mountain of human bones. This idea is deeply embedded in Chinese folklore, most famously through the story of Meng Jiangnü. According to the tale, she traveled a tremendous distance to find her drafted husband, only to learn he had died working on the wall. She wept so intensely that the masonry collapsed, revealing his remains. It is a powerful image of suffering. But archaeologists have never found systematic evidence that the Great Wall was constructed as a giant tomb for dead workers. If the masonry isn't actually full of bodies, we have to look past the ghost stories to find out what really happened to the people who built it. Modern excavations along the thousands of kilometers of wall show no evidence of human remains being deliberately built into the structure. The walls are carefully engineered from compacted earth, heavy stone, and interlocking brick. Hiding decomposing bodies inside these materials would severely weaken the physical integrity of a barrier designed to repel military attacks. Workers certainly died on the job in massive numbers, and their bodies were likely buried in the surrounding landscape. Fixating on the myth of a graveyard wall obscures the actual tragedy. The true human cost was a grinding, systemic sacrifice driven by the state. Calculating one death toll is impossible. The Great Wall isn't a single project, but disconnected barriers rebuilt over centuries. Initial unified walls were erected by the Qin Dynasty around 221 BCE. The sprawling brick sections seen today were built later by the Ming Dynasty. Ancient historical records describe enormous labor mobilization and intense suffering across these eras. But these texts often rely on rounded or symbolic figures rather than precise population data. We have thousands of kilometers of construction spanning millennia of imperial history. Assigning one literal casualty count to the entire phenomenon simply cannot be done. The labor force required to build these defenses was vast and complex. It included drafted peasants and stationed soldiers, convicts serving hard labor, and highly skilled engineers. They were building a complete military infrastructure system. Laborers had to construct watchtowers, fortress gates, barracks, and signal stations across some of the harshest terrain on Earth. This chart shows the staggering logistical supply chain required before a single brick could be placed. Workers had to quarry the stone, manufacture the bricks, haul enormous loads up steep inclines, and maintain a constant flow of food and water to isolated camps. Feeding and supplying this remote workforce meant extracting resources from villages and towns located hundreds of kilometers away from the construction zones. The human toll extended far past the people mixing mortar. The state demanded energy and sacrifice from entire communities drafted into supporting the logistical machine. Builders faced extreme geographical friction. They hauled massive quantities of heavy material up steep, unforgiving mountain ridges without cranes, trucks, or modern safety harnesses. The causes of death were brutal and highly ordinary. Workers were killed by fatal falls from the cliffs, freezing winter weather, summer heat stroke, malnutrition, and disease spreading through the camps. These grounded, physical realities are exactly what made the daily labor so lethal. Slowly freezing or working to death from sheer exhaustion on an isolated mountain ridge is a far more terrifying reality than the fictitious ghost stories. Which brings us back to Meng Jiangnü and the Weeping Widow. If archaeologists know her story is not a literal casualty report, why has it survived for hundreds of years? The legend gave powerless people a way to process the overwhelming trauma of state-mandated forced labor. It distills millions of anonymous, undocumented tragedies into a single narrative of a family torn apart by the state. We don't need a literal pile of bones hidden inside the masonry to recognize the immense suffering and separation required to build this structure. Today, millions of tourists walk along these ancient stones, often disconnected from the brutal physical realities that put them there. The powerful emperors who ordered these massive projects are gone, and their dynasties disappeared centuries ago. Yet the physical handiwork of the nameless craftsmen, farmers, and soldiers remains intact. We will never know exactly how many millions of people died on the frontiers of China. We only know that the cost of building those walls was devastating. The Great Wall stands as an eternal testament to the living people whose monumental labor outlasted the empires that demanded it.